Welcome to our webinar, Morphic, the free, new open source tool that makes computers easier to use. This webinar is hosted by the Network of Assistive Technologists on this Friday, the 25th of March, 2022. Joining us today is Greg Vanderheiden, and having worked in technology and disability for over 50 years, Greg counts many accomplishments, such as being a pioneer in augmentative communication and computer access, as well as co-directing Raising the Floor, an international consortium of 50-plus companies and organizations that are building the global public inclusive infrastructure. So welcome, Greg, and I appreciate you being with us here today. And I'm now going to hand the screen sharing over to you as you begin our presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much. What I want to talk to you about today is Morphic. It's an open source and free tool. And the focus is trying to make sure that everybody has access to the new technologies that we are bringing up, and more importantly, that they can also use them. I want to start by talking just briefly about something we call low digital affinity. Now, this is something
quick interruption, Greg. I'm very sorry, but if you can just switch over to your slides there.
I thought I did. Hold on. Stop sharing and then share again. Okay, can you see the slides now?
No, unfortunately, they're not coming through for some reason. Give it a try. Give it a try now.
I've got it here. There you go. You got it now?
Yep, they're coming through. Very sorry about that, but thank you, Greg.
No, that's good. So, thank you. So when we began working on this, we encountered something that I'm calling low digital affinity. And we started out just talking about people who had computers, who needed assistive technology. And as we got into it, we found that both people who needed assistive technology and people who didn't need assistive technology were having trouble with computers for another reason than we had thought. And that is just their innate ability to use technology. So digital affinity, I would define as just an ability or a talent in using technology. It's not the same as IQ, because I know people that are blazingly brighter than I am, top of their field, professors and other technologists and other people at the top of their particular fields who can't use their technology, but I can. And it doesn't make me smarter than them. It just means that I'm better at technology than they are. And it's not digital illiteracy either, because they've been using computers for decades. So digital literacy is a skill. That's something you can develop. But digital affinity is a talent. It's sort of like some people have singing talent, some people have athletic talent, some people are artists, and so some are naturals in these categories, some are okay, and some can't do it at all. I can't draw to save my soul, and my wife the other day commented, she said, "Oh, you're singing on key." Very surprised. So I'm not one that after 50 years or 70 years of singing still can sing worth a darn. Well, the same thing can be true in technology. So those of us who are techies, it just comes natural to us, and we don't really understand. Just like people who can sing or draw, they don't understand why other people can't, because it's not, you just draw. What's the problem? But in technology, there's something that's different than all those other areas. If I can't draw, it doesn't prevent me from getting a job or doing my job. I just pick a job where we don't have to draw. Same thing for singing. Same thing for composing music. However, with technology, they can't really get jobs anymore that don't involve technology. And so this is a problem. And I want to focus in on, not most of us, because most of us can get along. I want to go all the way down to the bottom 5%, the people who have the most trouble. That's still 1 in 20 people. That's a lot of people. And we're finding out that the number of low digital affinity is much higher than that. Things that we hear, for example, is they're doing something and you wonder why they're doing it that way. We had one person who came into job center. And there's 20 identical computers. And he stands behind, and there's only 4 of them being used. And he stands behind one person for 20 minutes, and then he leaves. Comes back an hour later when that computer isn't being used, he sits down to it. So we went over and asked him why. And he said, well, I know how to use this one. And we said, well, they're all identical. I mean, everything down to the sign in each one of the cubicles was identical. And he says, I don't know about that. All I know is that yesterday I could use this one. And so this is the one I'm going to use today. We talked to libraries, and they would talk about people coming in, and we say, what's the biggest problem you have? And they say, well, one is that a person will come in with their USB with a resume on it, and they plug it into their computer, and then they go wandering around the library looking for a librarian. And when they find one, they bring them down to whatever floor they're on, and they say, can you help me? And they say, well, what's your problem? My resume's on here and I can't find it, because they don't know how to get it. They don't know how to find the USB. And this is something that you will find a lot, and it's really harder than you think. I mean, you have to know to go to the File Explorer, then you need to go into the My PC, and then all the icons look the same, and you need to know which one you're looking for, even though it's not the same as the name on the actual USB itself. We've had schools, a community college, where a teacher was trying to teach English, and after 3 classes on computers, and after 3 classes of going around trying to show the people where to find the selection tool and the highlighting tool and the tracking tool, she finally gave up, handed out paper, yellow markers, and red pens, and had them do all of the markup, etc., on paper, and run them through a scanner because they had to be turned in digitally. And then the other one that we've heard a lot of is people talking about being afraid to do anything on their computer because they're afraid they'll break it. And we heard it first in the job centers, and we said, yeah, okay, that's, low tech, don't have digital literacy. Then we heard it in the community colleges, these digital natives, as we call them, the people who grew up with technology. Well, 2 problems. First of all, they grew up with this technology, which looks nothing like Windows. And when they get onto Windows, which they need for employment or Mac, it's just, they're lost. Also, a lot of people, even on the little ones, they can type 1,000,000 miles an hour, but they really can only do a certain number of things, or just work in one app at a time, trying to do anything that involves sharing information between apps completely outside. They don't know what it is. But we heard at the community college, at the job center, and then the community college, and then at our research university, again, I just overheard someone who was sitting down to a computer. We were asking them to do things, and the first thing they said is, well, whenever I sit down to a computer, the first thing I think is, am I going to break this? And I couldn't understand that, because it just seemed to me, how do you break a computer? I mean, that doesn't make sense. Well, going into the control panels, which is where all the accessibility and usability features are, I was talking to support people at the library, and they were talking about the fact that, they would never go in the control panels. And I didn't understand it until I thought of an analogy, and that is, if someone asked me to go open the hood of my car and go in and make some adjustments, my first thought would be, am I going to break this? Or how much is it going to cost for someone else to come repair this after I get done tuning it? And so we need to understand that the way we build things as techies may be very, very scary to other people. And the part that's bad about that is that most of the accessibility and usability features are in the control panels, et cetera, where it's kind of scary for people to go. So Morphic is an open source tool for the Windows and the Mac, and it makes computers simpler. It makes it easier to find key features. It makes it easier and faster to use them. And you'll see it also, we can make ultra simple computers for people who really, really have trouble using computers. And then for AT users, it also makes it much easier for them to use their AT on different computers. So let's take a look at some of these things. So here's Morphic. Now, here's I'm going to first show you, this is on a Mac, and you can see that here's the Morphic bar.
Greg,
here I am on Windows, and here
Greg,
I am.
I apologize for interrupting you again. So very sorry, but something's not showing through with your slides.
Yes.
Can you share your screen? Or can you share your screen?
Yes, I can share my screen. Yes.
Okay, great. I apologize for interrupting you again. So very sorry, but something's not showing through with your slides. it looks like your screen is not refreshing correctly, and it's picking up only parts of what you're sharing.
Let me try this again. I'm not sure what the deal is, but thank you. There you go. Evidently, it threw up an infinite mirror warning, and I had to kill it first. I see there's a slow refresh on this also, so I'll have to be somewhat careful. So I switched to Windows here, and it's showing me half of a Windows screen and half of a Mac screen. And then here's Windows 11, so now I'm seeing 3. Interesting. Okay, this is for some reason, it's not sharing the whole screen, and I don't know why.
Are you sharing in the Google Meet? Are you sharing a tab or a
No,
window?
I'm sharing the full screen as you see here. But when I switch to the other screens here, I'm only getting part of the screen being shared.
Are they
it's a different window.
Are they maximized on your end? Because otherwise they might be coming through.
Let me just try stopping and restarting the sharing and see if that fixes it.
I'd offer to call tech support, Greg, but we don't have any of those in the room.
Right, so it's showing me the Windows. I'll just have to kick in and out a little bit here. Yeah, the Google Meet does not behave well with screen switching. Okay, so here it is on Windows. And so if the text is too small to read, there are ways you can zoom in a browser, but it'll only zoom this part and it won't zoom all the rest of this stuff. So if the screen is too small for you to read, what you really want to do is to make everything on screen larger. And so they have a zoom feature, a text scaling feature that scales the whole screen larger. It's built in. Most people can't find it and don't know how to use it. So we brought it out and put it right on the Morphic bar. And again, the Morphic bar is here. You can make it show and hide by just clicking on the little Morphe here. So I can I'll make it larger right now, so it's a little easier for you on the presentation to see it. Again, it seems to be refreshing very slowly, or not at all. So I can now highlight some text, and if I highlight text, and then I ask it to read the selected text, it will read it.
A banana is an elongated, edible fruit, botanically a berry 1-2, produced by several kinds of large herb.
Okay. You can also use it if you just want to see part of the screen. You can click and it pops up the magnifier, which you can see here that you can move around the screen. You can also use it, and this is very handy for a lot of individuals in educational situations, to do a screen snip where you can clip and then you can just grab any part of the picture you want to. And I'm highlighting the banana in this case, and then it would copy and then I can paste it into any product. I'm looking at my screen, which is all clear, and I see the projected screen still is not refreshing. So you're getting overlap on overlap. And apologize for that. That's a Windows Meet problem. We also have contrast, color, dark, night. And we also have on the menu over here, which is not showing at all on your screen. It's not refreshing. Well, I will have to just pretend that you all cannot see, because it looks like the other screen is frozen. The Windows Meet is frozen now. But up pops a window, and on here I can select all of a bunch of other features like mouse settings, pointer size, keyboard settings, language, accessibility, magnifier, read aloud, color vision. For people who are colorblind, you can actually set it so that you can change all of the colors on the screen. So if I go to the Wikipedia page showing color blindness. Let's see if it will show that. No, well, it shows part of it. Maybe if I move the window, it'll do it. No, that didn't do it either. You can actually set it so that it will shift the colors, so people who are colorblind are able to see. If you get a chart that's got certain lines in different colors, and they can't tell the difference between the colors, they could just turn on the color filter and the colors will shift in such a fashion that colors that before would be the same for them would be different, so that they would be able to see, say, somebody has red-green color blindness where red and green both look like the same color, kind of a brownish. It would shift them so that they would look like two different colors, that they would then be able to accurately read the color-coded charts, etc. So you got night vision, etc. You also have the ability to, now all of this you can do by just using the bar. You don't have to sign in, you don't have to have an account, you don't have to do anything. As long as Morphic is installed on the computer, you can do all of these things with it. If you want to, you can sign up for an account, and again, it's free and secure, completely private. And you can then ask it to store your settings. So when you have things set up the way you want, you can ask it to store your settings, and it will store not only the computer settings, but all of the settings of your assistive technologies, so that you can then go to another computer, sign in on that computer, and it'll set up that computer just like your computer. So you could have your computer set up at home or at a clinic or someplace, capture all your settings, and then either go home, go to grandma's house, go to the tutor's house, go to school, go to the library, and be able to have it apply all of your settings to that assistive technology and to the computer there. And then when you leave, it'll all go away. So it'll instantly change back to the way it was before.
Greg, with the changes in the refreshing of the screen and that, we're not seeing an awful lot of any demonstration, and I feel that that's quite upsetting to not be able to see what you're demonstrating to us. Obviously, there's something going on with the screen sharing with Google Meet and that today. Apologize to everybody for that happening. What I'm curious on is we do have the option to change over to a Zoom meeting if that's something that would be of interest to you.
Well, it works perfectly fine on Zoom.
Oh, you're muted, Greg.
It shouldn't be. It doesn't show me muted. Can you hear me?
Okay, sorry, I didn't catch what you said there. Something went wrong with my sound settings.
I said doesn't show me as being muted. Can you hear me?
I can now. So with regards to the Zoom, the option to move over to a Zoom meeting, did you want to try and move over to that?
If that's not too much trouble for everybody, why don't we do that?
Yeah, I can certainly. I'll put the Zoom link in the chat here, and assuming that everything works perfectly there, then we can start dropping off the Google Meet and up into the Zoom. Yep, the link's working. I'm already seeing some people dropping in there. So I'll direct my focus over to the Google Meet here, and we'll get started again. All right. Thanks for everybody's patience on this, and Greg as well. We'll see you over there in a second.
Right. I'm always told afterwards that people are always heartened when the technologists have trouble with their technology. It makes them feel much more like they're part of the rest of the human race.
That, and as Ivan says in the chat, tech glitches keep him employed, and yeah, it shows that we're all human. That technology actually does have a little more control over us than we'd like to admit. All right, I think everything's recording, and I'll in post-production I'll put things together for us, Greg. So I'll leave it entirely up to you, Greg, as to how far back you want to go with some of your demonstration and such. And again, I appreciate everyone's patience as we moved over from Google Meet to the Zoom session here. So go ahead, Greg.
So here we have it on Windows, and here we have it on Windows 11. So let's go back and just take a look at this. The first thing we looked at is sometimes the font sizes are all just too small for people to see. And you can, in a browser, zoom and get this part to get larger, but none of the other menus, nothing else on the screen. And it doesn't work in the other applications. So if you can't see things because they're too small, it usually is everywhere. So Mac, Windows, they all have something built in that lets you rescale the screen so that everything is larger, but people don't know where to find it or how to use it, or it's too hard to use when they want to. And so we put it right here on the Morphic bar. I can just click on this and you can see that it will automatically make everything on the screen larger. If you don't need to have everything on the screen larger, but you just need to have something on the screen, we also put a magnifier so that you can just click and you have this little magnifier that you can move around and examine. And the mouse, by the way, works while you're in the magnifier. So if you want to, you can click on something in here and it'll go ahead and work. So you can do precision clicking. And some people find that really useful when drawing or doing other kinds of things where they need to have the precision. If you want to be able to read and you have difficulty, people with dyslexia, either people sometimes are just eyes are sore at the end of the day, they want to have stuff read to them. But people have dyslexia, even when they write, they aren't sure that they wrote it correctly because they can't read it back accurately. And so it's very embarrassing for them to send something out. So they can, in any application, they could select this and click read selected.
A banana is an elongated, edible fruit, botanically.
Okay, and have it read to them. So and now there's a read aloud feature in Edge. There's one in Word. There's one in OneNote, all from Microsoft, and they all operate differently. So the other advantage here is that we're using the built-in features in Windows to read this to you, but we're doing it all across all applications, whether they're Microsoft or not. This particular one is Firefox that I'm reading out of. If you can highlight the text, it'll read it to you aloud. And you can change by just right-clicking on any of these controls. You can change things. So I can click on here, go to settings, and it'll drop me right into the control panel where I need to be. I can change the voice speed, and things like that. We also allow you to change contrast. For people who have color vision, let's take a look at a color blindness. You can actually change the color filter so that things will look better to you. So that if you have a chart, for example, that's color coded with some lines in green and some lines in red, people who have red-green color blindness can't tell the difference. And when they find that the particular colors that are used interfere with each other, that is, they look the same, they can just turn on a color filter that's appropriate to their type of color blindness, and it'll shift the colors so that they become different, so that they also will see two different colors for the two different lines and the legends. And again, you can go into settings and you can come down and pick whether or not you have blue, green, red, green, the different kinds of color blindness that you have. Once you set the particular kind that you have and leave, then whenever you use this button, it will always use that particular type of a color filter. Again, dark mode, night mode. Some people think this helps with migraines and things like this. We also have the ability to allow you to do many more settings. So here's mouse settings, pointer size, things that you don't turn on and off a lot, we put in the menu instead of putting on the bar. Language, all the accessibility options, key repeat for people who have trouble with that. And we also provide other resources here. Now, one of the things is that if you set this all up the way you like it, it would be nice if all of your computers would be like that. So all the features I showed you up to now, you can do without having an account. If the Morphic's on it, you can just use it and it gives you access. If you want to, though, you can sign up for a free account. Everything's free. And you can then save your setup. So you can save all your settings that you have, but you can also save all of your assistive technology settings as well. And then when you go to another computer, you can apply the settings to the new computer, sign in, apply them, and it'll set that computer up just like your computer. And it'll set up the AT on that computer just like your AT. And then when you leave, you sign out. And when you sign out, it'll set everything back. Or if you just shut the computer down or log out of Windows, it will quit Morphic, and Morphic will automatically set the computer back the way it was before. So you can do this so that now you can have your settings at home, at school, at grandma's, at the tutors. When you go in for a test, if the place will support Morphic on the test computers, it would allow you to move your settings to the AT on those computers as well. Okay, so these are the sort of the basic features of what we call Morphic Basic, or the basic Morphic features. We also have the ability to, when you save the setup, you can actually save multiple setups, so that you can save a setup for when you're fresh. But some people, by the end of the day, their abilities change drastically. And so you can set it up so that by the end of the day, they are able to actually switch to a different setup by just going up to change my Morphic bar and select one, for example, that says tired, and all the settings would then change. The fonts could get larger, the key repeat could change, whatever else is giving you trouble as you get to the end of the day. All right. So let me come back here. Here is Sue, and she, her abilities change over the course of the day. So she actually saves her settings, and then at the end of the day, she's able to come back and have it reapply the different settings depending upon what it is. But she also set it up that when she is doing certain kinds of tasks, she has settings a certain way, and when she's doing other tasks, she'll change it and have her computer set up differently. So when she's just doing reading, she'll do it one way. When she's doing spreadsheet work, etc., she needs to have the larger screen, the more cells. So she just sets it, and she gets a larger desktop kind of effectively. Now, this was an older person who came into our lab, and we just asked her when she came in. You always ask, what kinds of things do you use the computer for? Have you used a computer before at all? And she said, oh, I used to use a computer. And so I said, what for? And she said, well, email and picture sharing and Facebook group. And I would Zoom with my friends and things like this. And I said, wow, that's pretty amazing. This was 10 years ago. And she said, but then one day I overheard the kids and the others say, the computer's all messed up for grandma again. Because I asked her, you said you used to use it. Why'd you quit? And she said, well, I heard the computer say that, the kids say this. And so she said, I figured I've had my time. This is their time. So I quit using the computer. And my heart just wanted to fall right out of my chest. It was whatever. But back then we didn't have Morphic. We didn't have a real good solution for her. But that was one of the things that inspired us to be able to do this. Now she would be able to sit down at any computer, not just the one that was set up for her, and use it. When she gets up, it all goes away. So she not only couldn't set the computer up for herself, because until it was set up, she couldn't use it. So she couldn't set it up, but she also couldn't unset it up because she didn't know how it got set up. And so this would allow her to both set it up and unset it up. And we actually found many other different people who reported having similar kinds of situations where couples, where one of the couples no longer used the computer because the other one just was so sick and tired of the thing being messed up, and the person couldn't set it up and unset it up, and it was too much work. And so they just stopped using it, and that should never happen. This is a feature we're working on called Focus that would help people who are really distracted by all the stuff and they just plain can't get their work done. Now, we talked about the fact that you can move between computers, but one of the features we're now working on is something called AT on demand. So let's say that you have Morphic and you go to the library and it would set up your AT, but your AT isn't on that computer. Or the only computer it's on is upstairs in the resource room that's open from 9 to 4 and you're in the evening. So you can't use the computers, or you want to use the computers in the stacks where you have to do your research, or you want to be down with your friends at the studying in a study group, or they're having a special training session down in the training room, but none of those computers have your AT on it. So you now have access to almost none of the library. So with AT on demand, you would be able to sit down to any computer that had Morphic on it, and your assistive technology, if it's not on the computer already, your assistive technology would show up on that computer, and then Morphic would set it up for you. So AT on demand is a separate sort of service that we're creating that would work with Morphic. So Morphic, when you signed into Morphic, it would say, oh, this person's AT isn't here. It would ask AT on demand to install it, and then Morphic would set it up for you. And then when you were done, it would all disappear. So for the first time, you could go to any computer at school, at home, the tutors, and not only would your settings follow you, but your assistive technology would follow you as well. And one of the other things we found is that there are many places in rural places, low resource individual communities, sometimes on reservations, where there is not connectivity in the house, or there's no computers in the house. And if there are no computers, then what does a person who needs to use assistive technology do? For everybody, it is a huge barrier in that all of their colleagues can do homework and they can't, or they have to go to somebody other place, or they have to go to the community center. But if you have AT, you're completely out of luck, because you can't go to the community center. They don't have your AT. You can't go over to grandma's or grandpa's, or you can't go over to anybody else's, or the tutor's house, or any place else. So with AT on demand, for the first time, we would be able to reach out and provide for those AT users who don't have their own computer, because any computer they sat down to would then be their computer, because it would show up. So you would have, for example, the ability to sit down and use any computer at the library, or for the person who doesn't have their own computer, any computer that they went to, they would be able to find that they would have their AT. Or for people who have to take tests, they would go in, and the test givers don't want you to bring your computer in. They don't know what you have hidden on it, but you would be able to have it so that it would install on demand a clean copy that they've already monitored, that's got no answers or any cheats in it, and be able to install that clean copy on there, and then set it up with your settings, and they can filter out any settings that allow you to hide answers, et cetera, as well. So these are all kinds of things that we're looking at for the AT on demand. It also lets a company or government agents set up their computer for you in minutes. So we have people who've gone to internships, and it took 3 weeks. I know in one case it took over a month before the person got their AT, and in a 2+ month internship, it completely destroyed it. And we heard from more and more places that did internships that one of the big problems they have is people who need assistive technology. It takes so long for them to get up that they miss really critical start parts of the internship, trying to get their computer set up, and they're not allowed to use their own computers inside company firewalls. That's just not going to happen. So with Morphic, you can have it. They come in, it installs a clean copy of the software that the company's already pre-screened on the computer, and sets it up for them in minutes. Now, one of the other things we can do with Morphic that's really exciting is to create really ultra simple setups. And so let me give you an example. So you can, in addition to the Morphic you've seen, we also have what we call custom Morphic bars. So I'm going to show you one here that is made for an older person. Then I'll show you one for a student, and then I'll show you one for somebody who would be in a job. But for this one, you have somebody who is just can't use a computer anymore. I have three people, families I know of now. One of them, their father was a computer science professor. One of them, their grandmother used to write compilers for code. And the third one was a physics professor. And in all three cases, they no longer can figure out how to get on Zoom. So much so that every week they have a Zoom call with the whole family. And every week they have to call between 15 and 20 minutes before the call and slowly talk the person on the phone how through the process of getting onto Zoom. And I said, oh yeah, but that goes away after a while. And they said, nope, it's been 4 months now, and we still have to call them up 15 minutes before. And it's like they never saw the computer before. And we have to talk them step by step through. But you could give them a computer where it's basically a push button. They click on here and it will show them the family pictures. Okay, so you can, everybody in the family can go into Google Photos and use Google interface. All they have to do is to click here and it pops them into the family photos. They click here, they get the weather. If they're into woodcraft, they can click here and they get into woodcraft. For the family Zoom, they click and it, in one click, I'm not doing anything here. I'm just sitting here watching, and you'll see it drops me right into the Zoom call. So you can actually have it so that in one click, it'll go into the Zoom call. Same thing for making a Skype call. You can make it that you click once and it doesn't launch Skype and then make it so that you have to go find somebody, et cetera, et cetera. It drops you right into the call. So you pick whether or not you want to have the camera on and you go in. Same thing if you have a worship service they have streamed, you can just click and they drop right into the service. Same thing for Gmail, et cetera. So you can just make it, click, whatever they click on, they go there. And again, this family Zoom call is click and just sit for a second and it automatically will drop them right in. No instruction, no hunting, no waiting, and they're sitting in the call. So this is, and this is a combination of, of web links, application launches, and everything else, and it can all be done. And the way you set that up is also very simple. You just go to custom.morphic.org, sign in, and then you can take any of the bars. So I'll take the grandpa bar that you're just looking at, and here it is. Or I can create a different bar. Let me just create a brand new bar. And then to do it, you just go through and drag the items you want to into it or click on them. Either way, you can do it and set it up. And then you can create custom buttons for a custom web page so that you can AAT.org. Let's see, I was going to do yours, but I'll just do trace umd.edu. And now you have a button that you can click on that would automatically launch you into Trace. And you can change the color if you want to, or you can get rid of the icon if you want to, etc. Then you just save the bar and it will show up on the other person's computer. So it's that easy to make up custom bars. So for a student, it might look like this, where you have a Gmail calendar, the Google Drive, Canvas, or whatever the educational system. But some people get lost in Canvas, so you can actually make it so that each particular course has its own button. Or you can even make it that if they're doing virtual classes, you just click and it literally drops them right into the class. So kids who miss classes because they just get too confused, they can't remember which Zoom link is supposed to go for which class at what time. We've even had students ask if we could give these to the professor, because the professor didn't show up for class because he couldn't figure out which Zoom link, etc. Disability services, coach, click and the coach would be available to you. And then again, you can do it same kinds of things for a company where you have their incoming, their knowledge base, the things they need to have, people they need to talk to if they're doing stuff. Tier 2 support, computer assist, whatever it is they need to have for their particular job. And different tasks, they can actually have different bars for different tasks. So you can make it so that they would be able to have a different bar at different times of day for different users, for different tasks, I mean. So by allowing an assistant to create a special Morphic bar, and that could be a family member, it could be a person at disability services, it could be somebody, a job coach. You can provide a particular set of buttons that will provide them with instant access to the key functions they need just with a single click. And one of the nice things, especially for older people, is that the bar never changes. We went from Windows to Windows 11 and everything moved around. The start menu is now different and a whole bunch of people just got completely lost. If you look, you'll see that Morphic on Windows and Windows 11, identical. So even though all the buttons change, the start menu isn't where you expected it to be. And when you click on the start menu, wherever it is this the start menu? I forgot where to start. Yeah, it doesn't look anything like the old start menu. And so they don't know what to do. But the nice thing is that this would be, and of course the custom Morphic bars would stay the same as well. And it needs no instruction. It's just there. They look at it, what they want, they click and they get it. Now we've also found clinics found it really useful because they would be able to set up a client and then save it, and then the person could go home and that would appear at the one at home. Vocational evals, they were complaining that people would come in and that all of their vocational testing is on their computer and all the AT is on the user's computer. And so how are they going to test the user's vocational skills when they either test them without their AT, which is sort of like having you take a test without glasses if you really need glasses, or on their computer, you can't install all this vocational assessment software on their computer. With Morphic, it allows them to instantly apply. And they also said if they see things somebody uses and they set it up during the eval, the persons can now take it home and apply it on their home computer. So what is Morphic? An easy way to discover and use the accessibility features and usability features. Always and everywhere accessibility, the ability for it to move around with you. Instant setup when you go to a new job, but also we've had people who are on the job and their technology failed, and it was a month before they could get the new technology in and get it all set up, and they could make all their settings back instead of having it set up again in a couple minutes the next morning so they could get back to work with a new computer, especially when they swap the computer whenever it goes down. And then the ultra simple access options we talked about. Morphic is free and it's private. It's sponsor supported. You can just go to morphic.org and you can get it free of charge. The basic features of Morphic are free. The basic enterprise for organizations is also free, and plus subscription to allow customization is now free as well. And there's no monetization of user data. Only what is needed for use is ever stored, and all the data is secure and it's never shared. All of this is made possible through grants and contributions from people, from viewers like you. There you go. The third-party AT on demand will have costs because AT has costs. We can't be installing those AT for free. The one final thing I wanted to show is I mentioned Morphic Enterprise for organizations. This is the Morphic basic bar. Enterprises have the ability to add 3 additional buttons on there. So if this is what UMD decided they wanted to add to their basic bar. They had the basic bar, they wanted Google Drive, Elms, and Gmail. University of Michigan chose 3 different. And you can actually have different computers have different buttons on it. So that they could have all the computers at the library have one set of buttons, and all the computers in the classrooms have a different set. But they want MPrint, MyCanvas, and MyMail. And then the last one was the American Job Center. They wanted something a little different. They asked for the 3 buttons to be translate tools that help people translate materials. Word simplify. We actually, if you've seen Word, there are like 11 menus and almost 200 different icons on the menus. And so these allow you to add, I just added them both here. Normally, this is what it looks like. You can add the basic, which just gives you just a really very, very simple, the basic things you need all on one bar. Or essentials, which takes all of the key items from all of the 11 bars and puts them on one. So you have your saves and your formatting and your inserts, pictures and shapes, even the ability to do comment tracking and stuff, all on one bar rather than having to keep switching back and forth, searching for things on the different bars. And then the final thing they asked for was the USB drives. And that is, remember we talked about when you plug the USB drive in, it would, they couldn't find it. So in this case, what you do is you plug a USB drive into the computer and then you just click open and it'll find any USB drives and open them up. They would see their resume, double click on it, they can edit it and go straight in. So these were the 3 buttons that they asked us to add on their particular bar. So excuse me for talking so very quickly, but we had a little disruption there at the beginning. So I'm trying to leave enough time for there to be questions. So let me stop now and see if there's any questions. I also want to introduce quickly Andre Dolan. Andre, do you want to say hi for a second?
Greg, I was just actually answering a good question here. Hi, Jim. Jim asked the question about Morphic Plus and it timing out in terms of there being a paid component to it. There is not.
Oops, you just went mute on us, but yes, Morphic Plus was going to be free for a while and then we were going to charge for it, but we've now made the Plus subscription, which allows you to do the customized bars free as well, and we're going to do that. We found that it took less support than we thought to support the feature, less people having trouble. And so with contributions and grants, we want to keep all of this stuff free. So Andre Dolan is the head of all of our outreach. And so she is the primary contact for.
Yeah, Greg, I'm going to throw my email into chat. And there are a couple questions here related to organizations using Morphic. For sure, reach out to me. As Greg mentioned, there's no cost for that, but we do have an enterprise agreement that we go through with you.
Yes.
My email is now in the chat, Greg. Thank you. And I think your email was at the beginning of this slide. And Doug, I believe you're going to share slides, or is there content? Great, thank you very much.
Yeah, we're going to with the replay, we will be sharing the slides and contact information. And and Greg, if you could maybe, if you don't mind, putting your email into the chat now, just so that, thank you for clicking as I was asking. Reading my mind there, Greg.
There you go.
So perfect. And Andre is here with us. And I think we might have one other individual from Raising the Floor, which is your parent organization that's in the audience here. And that's, I think there, if I'm not mistaken, Anne, did you make the transfer over from the Google Meet?
I did transfer over from the Google Meet, and I am the executive director of Raising the Floor. So glad to see everyone participate and learn about Morphic. It really is a game changer for people.
Perfect. Just before we get into the questions, there's some of them that are to catch up on here, and there's still some more coming in, and encourage people to do that, to add their questions into the chat. And maybe Anne, Andre and Greg, if I hate to kind of put you on the spot, but I'm sure you're able to speak very easily and fluently about Raising the Floor. If you might just give us an idea as to what Raising the Floor is.
Well, let me take a dive at that. I've been with it the longest. Raising the Floor was formed about 10 or 12 years ago when we saw the fact that there were so many technology and computers were being so integrated in everything we do. But there were some people who couldn't use the technology, or they couldn't afford the assistive technologies they needed to use it. And basically they were going to be just sidelined. And so raising the floor, and the name came from the ability to raise the level of the free and open source and low cost AT to the point where it was good enough that people would be able to access the technologies. And so we've been working with making it easier and to make sure that there were all the different types. So there's a unified listing, which if there is an AT anywhere in the world, you can find it on the unified listing. That's ul.gpii.net. Somebody could type that one into the chat. Then we created the developer space, which is ds.gpii.net. And that is a place for people who are trying to create new solutions to make it easier. And then the third one was this effort to make it a lot easier if you did have a solution to be able to use it and to be able to use it in different places. And then the latest, of course, is when we discovered this digital affinity, is just trying to figure out how to make it all simpler so that you can have these features and they can be accessed and used by people who are not techies and who are, you know, at the far end of the scale of technology, but still need to use computers. It's a nonprofit organization. It's original in Geneva, and then there's Raising the Floor US. So we have the two headquarters, if you will, working internationally and working, especially in the United States, and bringing Morphic online. And Anne and Andre came on in the last 6 months to really help as Morphic has moved from being just sort of experimental developmental and bring their wealth of experience, I mean, in working with disabilities and nonprofit organizations and technology and getting it out to people with disabilities. So it's been just unbelievable having them.
Yeah, thanks, Greg. And before we close down, Greg, I just wanted to make sure everyone gets kind of an understanding. We're really making some nice inroads. We're working with universities, with libraries, with nonprofits, with job centers, senior centers. We have a deployment going and ongoing discussions. So I can't imagine that if you're part of an organization and you're serving your community, I'd really love to talk to you. So you have my email there. Reach out to me. But I think that given our momentum and given the communities that we have been serving, and that momentum is picking up as COVID is lifting, so there's more in-person people being on site and on those shared computers. If you take a university, for example, could be the classroom, could be a library, dorm rooms, career centers at a university. In the case of some of the libraries that I'm starting to talk to, they're talking about putting it on their loaner equipment. We're working with a community college system out in the state of Washington. They're reimagining how they can use it. So please reach out, and I'll happy to chat with you and see how I might be able to help your institution.
And if you're down from Canada, we have placements in Canada, and we are also just finished up the sort of internationalization component. So over the next 6 months, we will be having it in French, which is key, I think, for deploying in Canada, as well as English and other languages. So I think we already have Spanish popping out in the next month or so. So now you had said some of you may have to leave because we've hit the sleeping hour, but we can stay on and answer questions longer for those who want to stick around and ask questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Greg, Andre, and Anne. I appreciate you filling us in on some of the background of the parent organization and all the extra work that you're doing well beyond Morphic here. So we are going to get to a couple of questions. Just a quick reminder: put your questions into the chat and/or unmute your microphones, and we'll get to you. The first question that I did want to address actually in the chat is from Linda, and I do notice Linda has her microphone unmuted as well. So Linda was curious in the chat whether it'll work in Windows 8.1. And was there anything else that you wanted to add, Linda?
Well, just we have a bank that is stuck in Windows 8.1. So this becomes a frequent issue, but this would be really helpful if it worked there.
Well, unfortunately, it won't work there because the features that I just showed you don't exist in 8.1.
Yeah.
We do go back Windows 10 for several years for people who are stuck back several years. But yeah, 8.1 is going to get deprecated soon. They're going to have to, for security reasons, move into Windows 10. But yeah, I'm afraid you have to be in Windows 10 or Mac. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Linda, and thank you, Greg. There was a carryover a comment from the Google Meet as part of the session from Anne, just that she was illustrating that at Queen's University, where Anne works, is that there's quite the lockdown of the IT from the IT department there, and something like this could quite easily work to open up access there. So I just wanted to share that. And then we have a comment or a question from Wink. And Wink is wondering, how does AT installed in one computer get transferred to another computer? Doesn't it require the software also to be installed or available through a server access portal?
Yes. Actually, it's you don't. The AT on demand doesn't take it off one computer and put it on the other. What it does is it puts it on the computer, and we make sure that there's a viable license, either that the individual has a license to use it anywhere, or that the organization has a license to allow it to be deployed on any of their computers, or they're using it through a license that we have with the organization, with the company. But what we do is we install it, and it's installed either from the cloud or for places like a university or a company. We actually give them, or they can store right on their own servers, the collection of AT installation packages. And we only then would install them. And that gives them the ability to pre-screen them if they want to, et cetera. Then we install them on the computer the person's on, and then we just take it off when they're done. Does that answer the question?
I think so, and if not, I know that Wink will raise her hand and or add it into the chat.
Yeah.
So that's great. And I just noticed, moving along here, Alice is asking. First of all, Alice made a comment about the fact that the security issue is also a big concern at the community college there. And then further asks whether Morphic will work with individuals using single switch scanning.
So first of all, security and privacy. We've gone through some of the most rigorous, everything is FERPA. If you go to the site, go to FAQs, and you can read the privacy, and you can read all about it, and the FERPA coverage, et cetera. Yeah, we have a number of universities, Big 10 universities, et cetera, very, very strict on privacy and stuff. And we actually have an external data privacy and data ethics council that we set up that's composed of international leaders in privacy and disability rights. And they, like one of them, I don't know if you've heard of GDPR, the big one from Europe. Well, that comes out of the European Data Supervisor's Office. And so the associate director from there is on the council. He's now actually moved over and he's into cybersecurity in the European Council. And so he's one. The ex privacy commissioner for Ottawa for Canada is on there. And then, other disability experts you can find about, you can also get a link to those and read all about them on our website. And so they looked at our provisions and they said they haven't seen anybody that went as far as we have gone in terms of trying to make sure that everything is completely secure and private. So we exceed all of the requirements from all of the places that we've talked to. So that's a good thing. I'm glad you raised it, and it's really super key, especially with disability-related information, which we think is so important to keep secure.
I notice Alice has got her hand raised.
Yeah, it goes beyond security. only our IT department can install things.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's gotten even harder because we were ransomwared in December and we're
Yes.
still recovering from the attack. And so getting something like this installed
Well,
is
this-
going to be really tough because they
Okay.
only do installs at certain times of the year, even before the attack.
Right. And that's the same at our university as well as the community college we're working at. So the Morphic itself is installed only by the IT department. It's only updated. We have the option to either automatically update for individuals, but for organizations, they even control the updates to it. And the installation on demand, they already mostly have these AT, and they are installing them on some computers. These AT, again, would be given to them. They would be on their servers. They would control the installation. It's just that Morphic would do the work. Just like they have a lot of third-party software that when they deploy any of the software, they don't actually install it by hand themselves. They use tools for installing it, but they're tools that they very carefully vetted. And that would be the same thing here. Yeah, the ransomware really has got everybody on edge. It's very scary. But we are working with places that are like that. So we would be interested in working with your organization and seeing if we can do the tougher the test, the better the test as far as we're concerned, because we want to be able to be that secure for everybody. And so we're not afraid of trying to work it out with anybody that's super concerned about that.
Okay.
But we can't say that, well, just because we're worried about that, we're just not going to worry about people who need to use AT. That's a lot of people to leave on the margin. So we want to find solutions rather than walk away from the problem.
Right. And then the other question that Alice had was whether it works with single switch scanning.
Oh, yeah. Yes, if you have AT, we would have to make sure that we onboard that AT so that it works. And then the person, of course, would have to bring their switch with them. We don't have the ability to install hardware on demand. If we did that, we wouldn't need any funding. We would have created a transporter and we would be able to fund ourselves.
Go back and get the lottery numbers. So, all right. So the question from Lyle: is there a way to set this up for multi-computer or lab configurations?
Yes. So Morphic is an MSI, so you can just all of the normal software that your organization uses to deploy software will work just fine with it. So it can be deployed. And then the 3 extra buttons we talked about, that's just a config file that you just install on the computer. So it's just, copying a file onto the computer. So all of this is done at these, all the universities we're doing by the main mass IT department in the same way they mass deploy all of their other software.
Perfect. And Melissa, I knew there was going to be someone, and if not, I was going to ask it, is Melissa wants to know about the good old Chromebook question.
Ah, yes. First of all, the transport of settings you don't need with Chromebook, because Chromebook, there are no settings on the computer. They're all in the cloud. So wherever you log into with a Chromebook, the settings will be there. However, they did express interest, Google, in the Morphic bar, because that really, just made things simpler and easier. We have not yet implemented it on the Chromebook. It's just a matter of funding. So if we can secure the funding to do that, we will do that. We've already researched it. We know we can do it. We just don't have the funding to do that and everything else we're doing right now at the same time.
Great. And Wink has just made a comment here: not to diminish the advantages to access for people with disabilities. There are many of us everywhere who cannot find anything and for whom this tool will be a tremendous benefit. So just wanted to share that comment there. And
Yes.
Jim is curious on how far back does it work with OS X, and do the M1 Mac machines work okay with this?
Yep. As a matter of fact, the nice thing is that when the M1 came out, the day it got released, I got one. I installed Morphic on it and it worked. Since then, we've been doing some little tweaks as they've come out with new operating systems to better take advantage of the new operating systems. But we work all the way back to, now I'm blocking on the name, the operating systems that started with an M. What was the
Maverick, Mojave, or
Mojave, and forward. But they're all free upgrades. So I recommend you actually just upgrade to the latest, because each time they added some more accessibility features. So it works better and better on each newer one because there's newer features. Even the read aloud on the new one, when you do the read aloud on the Mac, it pops up a thing that lets you change the speed and all that stuff, stop, start, pause. And that's, all comes free on the newer Macs. So.
And another question that I was hoping would come up is Maureen wants to know if Morphic works with things like lockdown browsers.
Locked down browsers. We spent a lot of time working on locked down computers. I don't know what a locked down browser is, but it will, first of all, the screen scaling always works because that doesn't involve the browser at all. The select and read will work because all the browsers allow you to copy and paste. Anything you can copy and paste works with the read aloud. So yeah, the part of the browser, the part that the browser locks down has nothing to do with Morphic. That would have more to do with people who are trying to install things in the browser, and we don't, or things that people are trying to mess around, with the content on the page. And we don't. We just change the computer itself that the browser is running in. So like the high contrast and the color coding, that's all done at the computer level, not done at the browser level. So I don't know that there's anything a lockdown browser would have trouble, unless you're talking about a computer that's put into kiosk mode where you can't get to anything but the browser and you can't get to any features of the browser, in which case everything is shut out except the browser, and so you wouldn't be able to get to Morphic. But that's only when you're in a kiosk mode.
Maureen is still in the meeting. I'm not sure if Maureen would like to unmute and add anything extra, or in the chat to add anything.
Did that
to
answer your
clarify that.
question?
We'll give
So
a few moments. Sorry.
if I could talk to that for a second. Lockdown browsers basically are a kiosk mode where everything, makes it so you can't even change tabs. You can't run any other programs. So my guess, Morphic does run on top of all of the other programs. You might be able to click it. It might work, but likely it won't, because you can't even copy and paste stuff when it's locked down.
Okay, well, yeah, I don't think, then if you're in kiosk mode, Morphic wouldn't work. Actually, if you invoke Morphic before you went into kiosk mode, you could probably change the screen scale and go into kiosk mode. It would still work. But once the kiosk mode is running, I don't know if there's any way to get to Morphic to allow you to do anything. Because kiosk mode, basically, the definition of kiosk mode is you can see nothing but this one tab in this one browser, and everything else in the operating system is locked out.
Okay, so Maureen did respond in the chat. Just unfortunately, Maureen doesn't have a microphone to be able to contribute by voice, but it sums it up. And I think this sums up what your response is, what Jim added, and overall is a situation like the lockdown browser. It's so unique that I think it just, like Maureen says, it would have to be tested. There's no hard and fast rule whether it works or not.
At that point, it's not really a computer anymore. It's a kiosk.
Okay, and Alice has asked a question, what about concurrent licensing where you only have a certain number of seats? So
we control for that. That's part of what we're doing with the installation on demand, is that we would control for the number of seats.
Okay.
That is that it means that we would allow, let's say you have 10 seats. So we would make sure that there's no more than 10 copies running at the same time. through Morphic. And so you could, if you did it all through Morphic, then that would cover that incident, so that situation.
Perfect. So I think I'm caught up on the questions that are in the chat. If anybody has added a question and I've missed it, or if they had it in the Google Meet and didn't transfer over somehow, please, as we wrap up here, please add into the chat any of the outstanding questions, and or unmute yourself, raise your hand, and then we can get to you by voice. And Jay has just raised a hand. So go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, I was just thinking, I was just talking with my ITS and late this meeting as they're looking at a new virtual machine type environment where we run a lot of software in a virtual environment. How would the tools in Morphic work with software in a virtual environment? Because we're looking at running nothing on the local machine except what works in memory, more or less, at some point down the road. Like a tool, I don't know if you know Apps Anywhere or VM Horizon. Would all this stuff, do you think, work, or would it have the same problem any other AT would have with these kind of tools?
Well, first of all, even Apps Anywhere is actually like 5 or 6 different ways of doing apps. It uses different ways for different apps. And so the answer is actually different depending upon what you're doing. Some of them, it runs like a virtual desktop. Sometimes it does like almost a Citrix model where it's actually just sending you bits. The first thing is, if you're running the AT on the remote thing, then you have all the problems of running AT on a remote item. For example, screen readers will have a lag, and it would be like if you're typing, and every time you typed a keystroke, it was always one character behind where you were typing. Just try typing something out and having the characters be delayed by 1, and you really end up being very hard to type. So with a screen reader, if you have a lag, so you hit a button and there's a slight lag before it talks, that's a real problem. And most of these virtuals end up running screen readers remotely. There are some that run it very fast and it works fine. We found that most of the things, the magnifier that you saw, the little magnifier window, is one thing that really does not work well. We found on TeamViewer it works, but on every other screen sharing service, it's just so laggy that you move the thing and it's like
I found the same thing with the same tool because I'm a screen magnifier user, actually.
Okay, yes. Well, for some reason, TeamViewer seemed to work fine, and I was really surprised. But I've been looking at all the other ones. If you find, do you know of another screen sharing where magnifier works remotely?
Well, no, you tell me. I'm looking. Anyone here?
Oh, okay. Okay.
No.
I looked at a whole bunch. I couldn't find one. Because TeamViewer was expensive, so I was trying to find for personal use. It's not, but if you use it a lot, then they decide you're not personal. I don't know. You're going to have to try it with them, but Morphic itself can run remotely. You can run it on the remote screen. You can run it on this one, and it'll still screen scale and things like that. And that seemed to work. You could try it, and we found that it works on a lot, but not all, depending upon which. And sometimes it's even like AT or Software Anywhere. It works with some of the things they do and not some of the other ones. And it's the reason they have 5 different ways is that different software has different licensing models. And so they don't allow it to run, using type version A. So they had to use version B. So that's a complicated answer. I'm sorry, but I think the people who are trying to do it understood the answer. But you can talk to me offline if you want more on that.
And Andre has put into the chat the link in order to be able to try Morphic if you have not already tried it. So
yeah,
that was certainly, it's free, it's easily tested, and being able to
yeah, it installs in literally between 3 and 10 seconds. And and it uninstalls just as fast if you want to get rid of it. As you saw before, it hides. You just click on the little Morphe icon in the toolbar, and it shows and hides. So it gets out of your way very nicely. One feature I didn't mention that some people had asked for, and remember I showed how they could zoom the screen larger and smaller, and they said, well, I have two screens, and what if I want to just zoom the top one but not the bottom one, or the bottom one but not the top one? It turns out you just drag Morphic bar to whichever screen you want to zoom, and then click on it, and it'll change that screen resolution. And so a lot of people I know use it just for that, because it's so easy to just drag it to a screen, zoom the screen larger when they need to use it, or zoom it smaller if they want to have more real estate, and then just hide it when they're not using it. So that's another one. But we have found a lot of people who got it and tried it out before they gave it to somebody they thought needed it, and decided that they wanted to keep it themselves as well. And it's free, so get one and buy one, get one free, because they're both free.
Great. Perfect. So I don't see any other questions or raised hands. And just as I'm speaking and wrap up here, if there are any last final thoughts, anybody wants to share questions they want to ask, please put them in and then we can get to them. But otherwise, I'm just going to be wrapping ourselves up here today with this webinar. I appreciate most of all your patience, Greg, with the technical difficulties, as well as everyone else that's been participating in the webinar today, as we had to move over from Google Meet and into the Zoom session here, and be able to, in order to be able to see Morphic in action and that. So again, appreciate everyone's patience. We'll stitch things together in the replay, and hopefully it'll look seamless and like there was nothing ever had happened, except that we're referring to this glitch that that nobody can tell where it is.
Well, you cut that out too later in your edits.
and I think I'll have the replay done by April 1st, the perfect replay. It'd be a joke. All right, so it's been fit. Sorry, go ahead, Greg. Yeah,
I was just going to mention, if you have technical questions, you can send them to me. If you have deployment questions, send them to Andre, and that'll be the fastest way to get the answers that you need.
Perfect. And those email contacts will be in with the replay, as well as Greg's slides and the download links and such. We'll make sure that those are in with the replay and that. So it's been fantastic. I'm glad that we had Andre and Anne here with you as well, Greg, and able to share with us the amazing work that the organization is doing, the amazing work that that they've been able to put into Morphic and what it does for the AT community and for the actual the end users, and opening up a lot of doors. And there's been a number of comments in the chat as we've been going, specifically addressing that, is that this kind of a tool can definitely open the doors where otherwise there might not have been that opportunity. So assistive technology professionals, as everybody here in the call today is, we're always looking to fill our toolboxes with the tools that'll help the people that we're supporting, help them get access to what they need to, and get them doing what they're living to their full potential, I guess we could sum it up as. And Morphic obviously has a place in that toolbox. So I appreciate you bringing it to us and explaining it, showing us, so that we know what's available in the tool. So we can now serve those that we support much better by having this information. So Greg, it's been fantastic. Your continued support of the assistive technology profession, the accessibility community, those with disabilities, and specifically the network of assistive technologists, it's definitely deeply appreciated. I myself, and I think I speak for everybody else in our profession, we look very forward to what Morphic has to offer in the future. Want you to stay in touch with us, keep us updated, and if there's a time in the future where it's appropriate for you to come back and show us what Morphic has morphed into. Sorry, I couldn't resist trying to slide that in there. Yeah, by all means, we'd be happy to have you back to show us Morphic, and I'm glad. Yeah, anything that we can do to help to get the word out and make sure that people are aware of the tool and what it's capable of. So again, thank you, Greg, Andre, Anne. I appreciate very much. And lastly, for everyone here today, Thanks for joining us. Remember, you can't spell education without AT. So until next time, stay safe and take care.